Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining. This is the Rezoning Petition 2021-014 community meeting. And I know I've spoken to some of you on the phone, but just a kind of brief introduction. I'm Maggie Watts with Urban Design Partners. I also have Anna Flournoy with Urban Design Partners. Anna will be taking notes as well as helping moderate the chat. We are also recording this and we'll be creating a community meeting report from the presentation in the Q&A session. We're representing the developer, Mark Bolos, who is here with us as well with Whitestone Holdings. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Mark.
Yes, hi everybody. Thanks for taking the opportunity to join the meeting tonight.
Okay, well, as I said, we'll be recording tonight's meeting and we'll also be posting that on our website so that you can access it after this, as well as inform anyone else who wasn't able to attend to access it as well. Okay, so general housekeeping. What we'd like to try and do is direct all of our questions to the chat tonight. I do think there are some folks who've joined by phone only, and if that's the case, you can unmute yourself using *6 to ask your questions once we get to the Q&A portion. If we could try and hold all the questions until the presentation's finished, just so we can help keep them orderly. As I said, we're taking notes of this meeting and want to try and make sure we include everything that we hear here tonight. This is a general context map showing where the site is located. Most of you may already be familiar, but west of 77 in between Grandin Road and Summit Avenue, and then faces Grandin Road. The address is 209 Grandin Road, so it sits basically in the middle of that small block there. This is a land use map that we pulled from the City of Charlotte's webpage, and just shows you the various land uses in this area. And as most of you may or may not know, we are just south of the church that is being adaptively reused, which is also Mark's project. I just want to touch on that a little bit. To be clear, this is a community meeting for 209 Grandin Road. However, there was a petition next door in 2006 which was approved, that was for the church and converting the church and the parsonage into a condo project. This is that approved rezoning plan. And we did include a couple of the proposed elevations for the work that is happening at the corner there. This would be the proposed front elevation of the church. And this would be the West 4th Street proposed elevation. So with any rezoning petition, we are always taking into consideration lots of design considerations. And for this particular site, we've listed out a few of those, and I'm just going to run through them a little bit so that you can kind of understand from our point of view, you know, what balls we're juggling and what things we're looking at to try and determine, you know, what is best for this rezoning petition. So for this site, existing site conditions were important. Not only the fact that it's alley fed, but that it is a historic character along Grandin Road, and that was very important to try and you know, try and retain that existing character along the road. The City of Charlotte zoning ordinance is going to dictate any any plan that were to be approved here. So if this rezoning petition were to carry on all the way through approval, the rezoning ordinance is going to dictate how those permit documents are approved. So when we are looking at the rezoning site plan, while it is conceptual, we are also taking into account the zoning ordinance. Community input. So I know Mark has talked to a lot of you all in dealing with his project that's going on next door. And as in many of the historic neighborhoods around town, on-street parking is an issue. When he acquired 209 Grandin, he felt that this might be an opportunity to include additional parking that would be able to serve the church project. Just to be clear, the church project is approved and construction documents are underway, and the parking that is required for that site is on site. So this would be in addition to that project and to that parking. The adopted land use is similar to the map I showed previously, and the proposed land use is less than 5 dwelling units per acre in this area and for this parcel. And what this petition is proposing does not change or go against that. And similar to residential density, the existing home is to remain single family in this petition. So the residential density would not be affected on this particular parcel. The adjacent approved rezoning, I touched on that a little bit. That is the church project that is underway as far as construction documentation and permitting goes. That was, of course, taken into account when the idea of this additional parking came to be. And then Mark has his development program that he might be able to discuss a little bit as we continue. And that's, of course, that is something we're taking into account as well. Vehicular traffic patterns. It sounds like streets are congested, on-street parking gets difficult, especially as more and more people are moving to Charlotte. This was an opportunity to mitigate that in a small way for this proposed development that's going on next door. And streetscape and street trees, there is a proposed streetscape that's going on at the church and improved sidewalks, street trees, and that would also continue with 209 Grandin. There are 2 trees that would exist, that would stay where they are, but we would improve the sidewalk to standards that are set today. And just to be clear, these are some things. Obviously, there's other things that come into play, but we wanted to just kind of give you guys an idea of some of the big players that we've looked at in this petition. This is the proposed rezoning plan that the city has had submitted. It is a February submittal track, and we'll talk about the timeline coming up a little bit. But at the corner, you see the church and the parsonage, and they are as existing as they are today. So that is not the proposed plan. But we did want to show how the alley access comes off West 4th Street and accesses the proposed surface parking that would be at 209 Grandin. So the driveway that exists today would not access that parking. It would only come off of the alley, therefore helping to retain the character that is along Grandin Road today, and basically having it unchanged when you take into the grade change as well. This is a section that was prepared by the architect, essentially to show the church and what was being proposed beside the church. There you can see to the right of the dashed line, 209 Grandin and the other homes on the street. One thing I think is important to point out with this petition is the existing home is to remain. I know I've said that, but as you are well aware in your neighborhood, in R5, there are many tear downs and rebuilds, and the rebuilds are certainly not the same height as the existing homes that are there today. And while that's not a bad thing, this would retain the exact character that's out there today. seeing a couple of things come up in chat, so bear with me. I will get to those. I'm certainly not ignoring you.
While you're doing that, did you say? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Could you repeat that again?
I said, did you say there were many tear downs that happened in the neighborhood?
No. I wasn't saying that. I was just saying that in R5, blanket R5, you know, and I know that there's a historic district. This isn't a historic district, but I was just making the point that in R5, a height consideration is much higher than what's existing there today.
Okay, got it. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure. And sorry, for some reason, I'm having trouble advancing my slides here. There we go. Okay, so what we did here was take the proposed plan that's next door and what we're proposing at 209 Grandin and put them together to kind of help show the whole picture. Again, the existing single family home to remain, and that's not only in structure but and in use. I think there was some talk because the conditions as they are now speak to some commercial uses, and those were just initial conditions. We are planning to tighten up those conditions so that it's very clear the use is to be single family. We're highlighting there the existing sidewalk and driveway, which will be to remain, and then the improved 6-foot sidewalk and landscape strip. The 15 spaces that are on site for Mark's Church project satisfy the parking requirement per zoning. So again, the parking that would be proposed behind 209 Grandin would be in addition to this. This also helps show the improved alley that would now come from West 4th Street through 209 Grandin. So just real quickly, kind of timeline points to note. Tonight, of course, is our community meeting. May 17th would be the public hearing if we continue on the track we're on today. There would be zoning committee on the 1st, and then the city council decision would be on the 21st. So let me go back to this rendering and we'll start taking some questions. Maybe. Oh. Okay. Okay, I see first in the questions, the design considerations account for runoff and drainage. Does the project include additional landscaping like rain garden, drainage ditch to counter the additional pavement? We would look at in the construction document phase, if this were to be approved, how the stormwater would be handled. I know that lot does have quite a bit of fall, and I imagine it, you know, we wouldn't want it to exacerbate that problem at all. As far as the additional landscaping goes, yes, that is correct. We would be providing screening with landscaping and fencing likely that would surround the proposed parking. Looks like a few comments, and I just want you guys to know the comments will be documented just as the questions are. And I didn't want to confuse anyone with the tear downs. I was purely speaking from an R5 standpoint that in R5 by right, you're allowed to have taller homes than what exists there today. So. Says if this existing home was to remain, who would want to purchase the home with a parking lot behind it? Additionally, this is turned into a short-term rental, not a family home, with many of the tenants not being respectful and not creating a neighborhood feel. As I understand it, it wouldn't be, Mark wouldn't be planning to sell it, but Mark, do you have any input to add to Lauren's question?
Yeah, so the existing home is planning to remain. You know, the neighborhood's very desirable. So you have a, you know, large home, the parking lot behind it, there would be, I'm pretty sure, Maggie, we're planning to have some portion of a backyard before you actually get to the parking lot. Yeah, it wouldn't be a huge backyard by any means, but there would be a little bit of a backyard area there behind the home. It's turned into a short-term rental. Currently, yes, we are renting it out as a short-term rental, as a lot of properties are being done in Wesley Heights. But that is not the long-term plan. The plan is to have it sold once it's, you know, once we're able to move forward with our development. And definitely, you know, as far as tenants not being respectful or creating a neighborhood feel, I can definitely address that. If you have any specific concerns, you know, please reach out to me. I provided my number and email, and if that's ever the case, we can certainly address those as those happen in real time.
So I see another question that says, is there a study showing how much adjacent properties will be devalued as a result of commercial and parking lots? We'll have to dig into that. You know, I don't see this as devaluing your property, but we can certainly try and find some research on that and send that to you. And in fact, to that point, if anybody does have follow-up questions from tonight, you're welcome to email me. My email is maggie@urbandesignpartners.com.
So Maggie, this is Shannon, the president of the Neighborhood Association.
Hi, Shannon.
How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. So it will devalue the property. And, you know, the disadvantage of a Zoom meeting is the neighbors don't feel that they can freely speak. Mark, you know, we have supported the church being, you know, redone into condos under the current zoning. But I think a lot of us were very surprised to see that you had purchased the property next to it and applied for rezoning without even notifying the community association, being as, you know, you've been in contact with us earlier and been to some of our meetings. So what that did is it threw up a red flag that you were not trying to be completely forward with us. And we would have told you before you applied for the rezoning that our community does not want any more properties rezoned. We've been eating away at the edges, and the church is one of them, but that's as far as we want the rezoning to go as a community from the neighbors that we have gathered over the years, and we keep having to fight these. The last one was with a developer that wanted to do a house on Walnut Avenue. And, you know, the conversation would have been a lot easier between, you know, us before getting to the city and receiving a notice in the mail. Another thing I want to note is the address listed on the letter that was sent out was incorrect. That disappoints me because some neighbors may have got that letter and not even known that it was happening in the neighborhood and tossed it before they looked to see the rezoning petition. And then another thing is you just said that after you get the rezoning done and the parking lot approved, you're planning on selling that house. Well, you know, so that's exactly the problem. And we know that you don't plan on tearing the house down, but we've had houses burned down. We've had a tree fall through a house. We've seen cars go through houses. Things can happen. And once that property is rezoned, then it's rezoned forever for whatever it is. And we know you can put options on it. We're well aware of that. But why rezone it if we don't have to do that? Our neighborhood has been slowly eaten away by development, and we've been very friendly for infill and for large scale projects all around us, and even interior. We have lots of quads, triplexes, and duplexes, but there's got to be a point that it stops. And I'm sorry that we didn't have this conversation before you purchased the church, because we would have told you that we don't want any more changing of rezoning or infill in our neighborhood. We want to keep the historic aspect, and parking lots are part of that. It's not desirable, and we can't put a parking lot in our backyard. We can't cut down trees of larger than 10 inches in diameter. But, I know the Historic District Commission is not frowned upon you, but we're frowning upon you because we've had to follow rules that this rezoning would allow you not to have to follow. And that's just in a nutshell. I have so much more I want to say, but I'm going to stop there.
Well, thank you for your comments, Shannon. And as far as, excuse me?
Sorry, this is Stacy Rogers. I'm also a neighbor at 304 South Summit, and want to echo Shannon's concerns that if you're going to be selling that house, no one is going to want a house with a parking lot in their backyard. This is a detriment to the neighborhood, to our community, and it is not acceptable, as in my opinion, as a neighbor, to rezone this property to put a parking lot in it. That is not a neighborhood feel at all. That's all.
Yeah, just real quick, one quick comment. This is Alejandro. I actually, live across the street, and kind of to that point, I'm not interested in having traffic going through, the property facing us. And, honestly, I just don't, I have trouble believing that, rezoning the house, adding a parking lot to the back, and then selling the house to, a new homeowner. I just, I have trouble believing that story when, in reality, I just don't see any value in that being a residence after that point.
Okay.
And I think before you get into moving on, and I know you got to kind of usher this, but I'm going to just make a couple of quick points, and I promise they'll be quick. So Mark, this is not personal towards you, but it is definitely personal for us, the stakeholders that live in the Wesley Heights community. And I sit on the board with Shannon as the vice president of the Wesley Heights Association. So I want to echo the sentiments that some of us that have gone to great lengths, myself included, to really put time and investment, just like you're doing, into our properties and into our homes. And we've gone through the strenuous process of making sure it is right in the eyes of the nature of the architecture of this neighborhood. And we have followed the rules to a T because we didn't have any other choice. But we appreciated that on some level because it protected the integrity of the investment. And this feels like that is plucking it from the inside and out. And so that's why you're going to meet this with such resistance, because I take it extremely personal when it comes to all the dollars that I have spent to then find degradation in the neighborhood in this manner. So again, it's not personal towards you, but it is very much so a personal topic. And I need you to understand that. And then to the comment that we will do market research to understand the impact, that is absolutely unacceptable, because anytime I do any investments, because I'm also an investor, I don't wait until I purchase the property to understand the value that it's going to bring my pockets. And I also understand what it's going to do to the surrounding properties. So that going in. And just to a word of caution, when we've seen developers come in with the stories that we don't know, that doesn't fly over well. It's best to be extremely transparent, because what is true is there are a lot of us that know the process, that are developers in our own right and investors in our own right, and we know what goes into the process. So I don't buy that you don't know what it's going to do to the value around the homes, or the homes around the parking lot.
Well, so I would just to try to kind of respond to some of the comments that were made. So the homes around this home are going to be the 15 units that are directly next door to it is really a bulk of the quote unquote comps that will come in for this property. And so having the additional parking will inevitably raise the value of each of those properties, those units. I understand if you compare that to the next door single family home, but in wanting to preserve the historic character of the church, not tear it down, seeing it as such a beautiful building with the house next door, the 205 Grandin, the parsonage, and having this previously approved rezone to have the 15 condo units built in to this parcel, to not have the parking that this project really would need, I think would be a detriment to the community, not having a place for the cars to go. So, I mean, I understand your perspective, but, seeing it from the perspective of the future owners of the condo units, and then the additional the additional congestion that's going to be created with not having the alleyway free and having this parking, and now having a significant amount of additional cars. We want to see the building preserved, and we want to see the project move forward, but it comes at a cost. So I think the privacy fencing, the screening to eliminate the view of the fact that there's parking back there. I mean, like I said in my message, I realize that this, it's a late notice. I apologize for not reaching out sooner about this rezone. I'm available. I've been, as Shannon mentioned, I've been to a couple of the community meetings. But I mean, it's really to avoid a bigger issue, which is going to be having a lot of additional cars there. So I hear what you're saying, Katanya and Shannon.
Now, but question for you. I thought we heard earlier that the parking is acceptable for what's required on that church property. You have all the parking you need already on the property. You don't need to have the next door house turned into a parking lot to make the church condos. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. However,
so you just want to turn the neighborhood into a parking lot. That's what I'm hearing.
It'll raise the value of the project. He said it.
What's that?
It will raise the value of your condos if they have additional parking.
Well,
it won't raise the value of the homes around it. It will raise the value of the townhomes. And that's exactly what I knew, why you were doing this. Because who wants to buy a townhome for $500,000-$600,000 that they don't have a dedicated space for an additional guest? And yes. Mark, I honestly, I sympathize with you on behalf of making a bad decision, but as a neighbor and as a resident of this neighborhood, I'm very frustrated. And everything you said is completely self-motivated. And yeah, we want to see the church saved, but not at the expense of losing our neighborhood. And we've had this conversation with other developers. If you can't make the project work with what you have, you shouldn't have bought it. And you shouldn't expect us, let me finish, you shouldn't make us accept accommodations for things that you already knew going into the project. That side of Grandin Road is packed because of Grandin Heights and all the infill already there. You knew that going in. Sure. And you knew that there was another offer to buy that church, and you still went forth because you thought it could work. But obviously you knew that you could buy the house next door, you could get the zoning approved for the parking, and then you could move forward with it. This seems so calculated, and it seems so unauthentic that it really bothers me. And had you talked with the neighborhood prior to all of this, we would have told you that this is not something that we take lightly. We have spent a lot of time here, and yes, the streets are congested over here on Grandin. You can't find a parking place. They block my driveway on game days. But you know what? I live downtown and I've accepted that. But trying to come in and convince us that we need to rezone a house so that you can do it behind another house, that's not fair, because who's going to do it next?
Okay, I just want to just make the point. We have a lot of comments stacking up. People are using the chat, and we have about 30 minutes left. So I do want to try to get to some of these comments and questions that people have. And real quickly, we certainly are trying to be as transparent as possible. This is a team effort between Mark and ourselves, and we are representing him. We don't have information specific to numbers. So, that is not something I was able to give you or have the answer to immediately. Moving on to the next question here. Have you considered the precedent this would set for builders to consider the same other lots within the neighborhood, essentially allowing parking lots and backyards? We might never be able to change course. I think this is a unique condition, so I don't see why folks would want to rezone to include parking to the rear of a residence. So I do see this condition fairly unique. How many units are planned total for the church project? I believe that is 15. Again, the rezoning parcel is 209 Grandin. However, if the current zoning applies for the project, then why request new zoning? We are against rezoning on further into the interior of the community. If it's a comment and I skip over it, please know that we are taking note. We are copying all of these comments down. So I'm certainly not leaving you out. If the neighborhood was currently not desirable, you would take course to destroy the house for your project's sake. If this is approved, how many more of us will be allowed to petition for changes? Is there a cutoff number? Because there will be dozens of us that may want to capitalize on the appeal of this desirable neighborhood. Every petition is looked at singularly, so this petition would not and should not have any indication on any other petition in the neighborhood.
Maggie, quickly, if I'm calling in on the phone, so I don't have access to what you're looking at,
yes.
Would you let me know at what point in time I can say something? This is Thomasina Massey.
Yes, and that goes for anyone on the phone, since we aren't able to see. Please, as orderly as we can, you're welcome to unmute yourselves and ask questions.
Okay, well, I'd just like to know when I can get in.
Oh, go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah, this is Thomasina Massey. I'm a property owner. I received the letter. I'm a property owner on Walnut Avenue in the 300 block.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned earlier, number one, I was a little concerned that I received that letter with Wallace Lane or something on it. So he's absolutely right. I was about to discard that. I believe I spoke with you. I called and spoke with you maybe last week or so.
That's right.
About, I believe you indicated there were about 150 letters that went out. And the more I talk to my neighbors, the more I'm finding out they didn't get this notification. So I'm interested, number one, in finding out where the 150 letters went. Did they go to the community, the condo community next door? Or
some of them
did
probably
those
did. So that
Okay.
list is generated by the city of Charlotte and then given to us, and it's based on property owners and certain HOA presidents that are indicated in that 300-foot radius from any point around the property
Okay.
line. So we
Well,
ourselves do not come up with that list, and we do get some letters returned, but we did send out about 150 for this community meeting.
Okay, well, that question, obviously the bulk of them went to the condo community, didn't come to the, to the neighborhood. My other question, as I believe somebody, Stacy, had mentioned on the 15 spaces that were already approved for that spot with the rezoning from 2006, that you had ample parking already designated there. And I believe you had indicated that this parking piece was also going to affect like parking on the street where it might be some inset parking off of the street, along with maybe handicap space. But I'm a little concerned, Mark. I'm sure you're still on, but I was at the neighborhood meeting. I think the last time we had a meeting, and the last time you came and we had some conversation, you had indicated that you were the one that bought the church. You're also the one that bought that duplex right next door to it. Is that correct? On 4th Street?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that duplex, when you were doing the renovation on it, raised a lot of concern itself, because obviously when you did the duplex itself, before you ventured into this big project, you didn't, do your due diligence there. We came by, you were about to paint the brick on that property. I see you put in an asphalt driveway out front. I'm not really sure about the asphalt right now as it pertains to the historic piece, but you put in an asphalt driveway out there that looks kind of icky. I mean, you were about to paint the bricks. So it looks like when you first came in the neighborhood, you didn't do your due diligence. So it would make me think more so ever now that when you embarked on a project as big as this one, that you would have learned from your little duplex that you had done. Now, the other thing, I just want to make it perfectly clear that, I am definitely against that. And as we had said in the past, with other developers trying to do something, very, kind of similar, trying to put, I call it a trunk in a suitcase, trying to put something in in a smaller space than it requires. So I'm concerned, first of all, the letter was incorrect. The people that the letter went to, the fact that, yes, you're absolutely right, this rezoning and this project was approved early on, back in 2000 and whatever, long before those condos came, long before any of that. So it was plenty of parking and everything else. It was not such a big issue. But I am just concerned, that, you came in the neighborhood and did a small project as that duplex, and you didn't do your due diligence there. If we hadn't just, happened to come by, you were about to paint, and painting the brick is definitely out. So I'm just concerned that you would spend that kind of money and not having done the due diligence. So let the record show I am definitely opposed to it. And you can move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we will make note, Wallace Lane was incorrect on the petition. The tax parcel ID was correct for the parcel, but that street name was incorrect.
That's a big mistake.
We certainly apologize for that.
Honestly, that's a huge mistake. And I'm a little disappointed the city didn't stop this whole meeting tonight, because the letter had the wrong address. And it also doesn't have a yellow rezoning petition sign in front of it. I don't know how they pick and choose when they're going to use those.
It just hasn't been put up yet.
That's convenient.
We have no control over that. That is the city, but they have a process for how they go about putting up those signs.
And this beef isn't personal. I mean, I know it sounds personal, but it's with the city as well, because Charlotte has a horrible reputation for protecting the historic districts, and for also letting the developers not know up front that these neighborhoods are going to fight to keep what little bit of a historic footprint we have. And, if people would go back and research and look, they would see that our neighborhood has fought this off many times, and we're going to continue because we're small. We are desirable, and the reason we're desirable is because of what we are today, not where you're trying to take us. Everywhere around us is being very much redeveloped, and those neighborhoods are welcome, and we are excited that they are, and we welcome everything around us. But we can't keep slowly encroaching on our neighborhood. It has a domino effect. It's got to stop, and it's got to stop at the historic boundaries. And we can't undo that 2006 zoning, but we can stand up and stop letting the neighborhood be eroded.
And given the fact that the zoning's approved, you're going to have 15 units right there.
Nobody argues that.
You're going to
nobody even we welcomed you to the neighborhood and told you we were excited about that, Mark.
Can I finish? I was in the middle of making a point. The point being is that if you fast forward a year or so, you're going to have these 15 beautiful units built, and you're not going to have enough parking. And then everybody's going to complain that it's super crowded, you can't get through. So
that sounds, I'm sorry.
What would be the solution? This is providing a solution. Yes, it's not the ideal solution, but you have 15 units going in on the corner. So,
Mark,
yeah.
Then honestly, I think part of it is something you should have thought through, because you may have trouble selling those 15 units.
I did think through it, and they will sell fine. I mean, the
Well,
demand.
then move forward, because I don't think any of the neighborhood
Okay,
has said anything about the park.
assuming they sell fine, right? You still have.
Yes, we hope they do.
You still have a major
But
parking.
Mark, yeah, I hear you, Mark, and I hear you.
I
I
mean,
guess where I'm confused though is
it is not gonna shift the needle on how much additional we sell the units for. That, to be honest, I could care less. It is really going to affect the parking situation.
However, I think that what you're saying
Mhm.
is counterproductive to what you're saying you want to achieve for us. We've already stated here, and I think you know this, our parking situation is already terrible.
Exactly.
So, wait, no, I'm not, this is not an advocation for you putting in parking in behind the house. This is saying that little bit of parking that you're trying to do is still not going to assist the situation. Again, like Shannon said, that church building, it was a wonderful dream to make them into condos, but only with the parking that they have right now. If you're wanting to do additional parking, then that was not the right space for condos. That's just, I mean, I don't understand where we're missing one another.
This is Shai Goldstein. I'd like to say something, if I will. I've been in this neighborhood since 2003. I supported making that beautiful structure into condos. What I didn't support is making it into 15 condos. Maybe the answer is to use that space to make less condos, more high-end condos, and then you won't have the parking issues. Use the parking that you have, put a reasonable number of units in there, and then you'll be all set.
I like that, Shai.
I mean, you're trying to get 15 units in there, trying to maximize the dollar return on that lot and trying to put parking somewhere else because you're putting too many people in that space to start with.
Even we studied this, even going down a couple of units, we still have a significant amount of parking that needs to be accounted for. Not everybody.
I'm not talking about a couple units. I'm talking about maybe half.
I just want to, make mention, I understand these two are related, but I would like to try and keep us on topic for 209 Grand and that rezoning. And as it stands now, there's 75 unread questions and comments that I know we won't get to in the next 15 or 20 minutes. So if we can, I'm going to try and continue with some of the questions that people have put in the chat that we haven't heard from. I see, are you turning the house into a leasing office? No, it will remain single family for use. Many comments, and again, we will be copying this entire chat, as well as Anna's been taking notes for the verbal comments. We do appreciate all of them. Well, these condo units explicitly prohibit short-term rentals in the HOA papers. Again, that is a separate project. This parking is talking about servicing that project, but that is a separate project. The cars do have a place to go in your plan. Why do you need more? I'm looking at 3 cars parked in front of your short-term rental now. Oftentimes, many more rented for a single day over a weekend as a party house if you cared. About the overwhelming street parking, you wouldn't allow for this property to be an Airbnb. I have a question of how we know a tax parcel ID. Those are searchable through Charlotte's website as well as Polaris. I understand that's not something everyone uses every day. So again, that was completely our mistake to have Wallace on the mailer. Okay, it looks like a lot of those were comments, and I'm sorry I'm not reading every one of them, but we are taking them all down and we appreciate them all. Are there any other people that were call-in only that would like to unmute themselves and ask any questions?
Hey, this is Mark Miller. I got on late and I might have missed some things. And I did not read every detail on the rezoning, but in the MUD conditional zoning, what is the required park per, is it per unit or is it per bed? And what is that number?
It's one parking space per unit.
Okay. And what does the site plan show for parking currently in the approved rezoning?
On the approved rezoning, are you talking about the 2006 rezoning, I guess? There are, I believe, 15 shown. Let me go back to that slide.
Yeah, I would say yes, it's 15.
Yeah, it's at least 15.
15 spaces are shown for 15 units, is that correct?
Correct.
And how many beds are planned per unit?
Approximately 2. For by and large, they're 2-bedroom, 2-bath units.
Right, okay. So I guess the issue is that you potentially could have 15 additional cars that you don't have parking for. Is that the sum of it?
That's a potential, yeah.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. I just wanted to understand the specifics around the parking.
As far as
Thank you.
property values, is that with these 12, 13, 1400 square foot units, this will increase the price per square foot in the neighborhood, inevitably thus raising the property values of the single family homes.
So actually, that's not applicable to single family comps. You can't use those for comps for single family homes. So that's incorrect.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I think what we brought up before is that it's not just about that. It's also about allowing you to do this, then opens us up for more exposure later from other people, right? So it's not just about that. And I think that we should point out that this is not a singular attack mark kind of thing. It's about the greater plan when you're not here, right? And so we need to keep that in mind.
Yeah, this is David Groen. I want to agree with that last statement from Catania. And I did have a question of clarification on the rezoning. Is it rezoning on that one piece of property that you had in yellow dashed around? And first, I want to clarify that. I have one more question about the zoning after that.
That is correct. It's just the property that's dashed in yellow.
Well, okay. And when Thomasina was speaking, is it true that the developer also owns the duplex that's behind the church?
Yes.
And that area is not going to be rezoned?
Correct. That's not the scope of this at all, nor is it the intention to rezone that.
Okay, I guess that's clarifying my questions. I also wanted to ask you made a comment, Mark, in the very beginning that you said that the rental had increased in Wesley Heights. Do you have statistics that prove that? I've been here since almost 20 years, and I actually believe, with the exception of maybe the apartments, that the rental has actually decreased over the 20 years that I've been here. At least for the single family home properties. So I just don't know why you made that comment, but as a longtime resident, I just think you're inaccurate on that, or maybe need to make that a little bit more accurate. Again, I oppose this for all the reasons that we've said earlier. The last comment that Catania indicated, this could be a precedent for this problem continuing. We did fight this more recently on Walnut and stopped that project. And the neighborhood, with the limited number of single family homes that we have, We've got a lot of historic properties that have quadruplexes, duplexes that are fine. They've been here for years and years, and they should all remain as they are. There was a plan that was done about 20 years ago when we first moved in the neighborhood, and that plan outlined where the suggested areas were that would go multifamily. And over the years, as Shannon Hughes has pointed out, that has happened. That's come to fruition. But I definitely, for the state reasons that we've heard from all the other people speak, oppose this. And that's my only comment. That's my final comment.
Okay. I have gotten through the entire chat. Is there any other questions about the rezoning in particular that anyone would like to ask?
Yes, hello. I have a question. My name is John Caratelli for Mark.
Mm-hmm.
You said there's 15 units. I like what Shai Goldstein said. Why do we have to have 15? Why can't we do higher end condos, less condos, and less, and they wouldn't have an issue with this parking problem? Why do you have to make it a 2-bedroom? You could do a 3-bedroom or a penthouse suite.
Yeah, I could certainly look into alternatives. I'm not.
Yeah, that'd be great, because to me, I think that'd be the best solution to, for your circumstances, because, you have high-end condos or townhomes. People like that better than a little 2-bedroom, 1,200, 1,400 square feet, because what's going to be potential is going to be a rental. And when you have something nice and elite, to me, it would sell. You have the uptown area, everything's, the light rails coming in, the train. So, I mean, to me, you'd get people, it's more desirable. And the stuff behind you, behind that church there, that was an empty lot there. And they kept that triplex, that brick, when they restored that. And the Cooper, I think it was Cooper Development, did that, Grandin Heights. And it's beautiful. They did a really good job. It was an empty lot. There was no issues with this. Mm-hmm. But what it is, we're having a problem is coming in to the next house, putting a parking lot. And it just, to me, I wouldn't want to. Now, if you was buying a house beside it, would you look across the street and see a parking lot? To me, it would just be like, it's a deal breaker.
Well,
but I do like Shai Goldstein's idea of that, of less condos, more upscale condos. And I think that'd be a perfect thing right there. And that'd handle your parking situation.
This is Megan Bailey. I have a question. The picture shows that there's a church and then 2 adjacent buildings on that lot. What's the plan for the 2 smaller adjacent buildings? Is that part of the 15 condo plan?
I believe it is. Mark will have to answer that question for sure.
Yes, it is. There's an additional building that's approved to build and basically an extension of the back of the church building to accommodate for an ADA unit and 2 additional units. So three additional units will be essentially attached.
Hi, Mark. This is. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Megan. Oh, I was just going to say, this is Brooke Harrelson. I live on Grandin, and I've been in the neighborhood long before I bought this house. I'm also in real estate. And Mark, I want to follow up with what Shai and John said. I think this is not a personal attack. This is us protecting the neighborhood. But I truly believe there's a way, by using their example, that you could get a return and then some on your investment and use the neighborhood to your benefit, that there's not much historic in Charlotte. And, people are in South End living in 1,200 to 1,500 rentals. And at some point they want to find somewhere to go. And there's not a lot of that. If you look at the townhomes, the Wesley Village townhomes, and look at those luxury townhomes, people are paying upwards of $600,000 on their own and then some. and it's only going up from there. And I think you could utilize that and market yourself to separate yourself from the rest of the developers and make yourself stand out by using the neighborhood's historic value and potential and changing your project a little bit while keeping everyone in the neighborhood happy. So I oppose the current plan of a parking lot. I think that is more for your financial gain. But if you were to really think about it, you could separate yourself and set yourself apart. And that's all.
There's a couple of last questions that came in. And one was, I guess, was there any consideration, Mark, of this parcel being included in the initial rezoning?
Oh, not.
Okay.
No, the one from 2006. I'm not been aware of.
Okay. And another question, would it not be easy to take out the new building and add parking there? Again, I can't speak directly to Mark's proposed project.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Like I said, I can go back to the architectural team and see if there's opportunities to change things around, to bring additional parking, and make larger units. You know, it's I appreciate the feedback, and we'll see what we can do.
And I think we are about at time. I just kind of want to echo what Mark said. I think towards the end here, we did really get some helpful feedback, and that's what we're after. We totally understand that, you know, emotions are running high, and this is a rezoning in a historic neighborhood, and understand that gets many people's hackles up. We do hope that we can keep an open line of communication, and if there are additional ideas that anyone has, we're open to hear those, as well as additional feedback. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for your comments, for your questions. And again, if you have any questions for us, you're welcome to reach out to me. My email is maggie@urbandesignpartners.com. And thank you all for joining tonight.
Thank you all. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you.